In Clement Clark Moore's poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, children dreamed of sugar plums, a term referring to small, round, or oval candies made of crystallized sugar. Regardless of what the candy actually was, these children were very clever to visualize the treats they wished to receive for Christmas. Marty Robbins, love cannot be explained. It cannot be controlled. One day it's warm, the next day cold. As a child, I was the youngest of 3 boys in my family. I took after my mother, while my older brothers took after my father. My father was cruel to my mother. Although I never saw him hit her, his shouting and angry words often wiped the joy from her face. My brothers decided that if our father could belittle my mother, then they could make my life a living hell. Why my mother is still with my father, I cannot understand. Since I left for college, I only speak to my father and brothers when absolutely necessary. I am determined to live my life without those who thrive on violence, whether it be emotional or physical. Where other men in my family consider it beneath them to help others, I volunteer wherever I am needed. It was through volunteering that I met the love of my life. Volunteering has strengthened my desire to have children of my own. I am determined to prove that the cycle of violence can be broken. My children will always have a loving family. In some twisted sense, I've completed one of life's strange circles. My name is Jeff Foster, and I enjoy playing Santa. What I don't enjoy is people knowing about it. I admit this is probably some sort of psychological flaw, but so what? I'm very self-conscious about my appearance, and being known as the jolly old fat man just doesn't sit well with me. Despite my reserved exterior, I do have a playful side. Playing the role of a cheerful yet slightly intimidating man helped me meet my wife. At one event where I was entertaining children, she was one of Santa's helpers. I only knew her name, but her personality fascinated me. After the event, I tried to track her down. Without letting her know that I was Santa, we were introduced to each other. Cassie didn't want to go on a date initially, but when her friend suggested a double date, I managed to get my foot in the door. Turning on the charm and pretending to be a bit wealthier than I actually was at the time, our romance began. After another double date, we started going out one-on-one. Cassie wasn't in a hurry to settle down, but I was patient. 6 months later, we decided to become exclusive. A year after that, we got married. We haven't started a family yet, but as we approach our 30s, the topic has come up more frequently. Known for being humorless, straightforward, and a bit rigid, I never ranked high on party invitation lists. Crickets and I often kept each other company while watching corporate events from the sidelines. Cassie enjoyed herself, while I spent most of my time observing people. We had been married for 4 years when Cassie began hinting that I didn't need to attend her company's parties. I ignored her and went anyway. That's when I started paying closer attention to who she spent time with. I observed how they acted both when they were together in a party. As the holiday season approached, I contacted a company that provided Santa services and browsed the list of available opportunities. One listing immediately caught my eye: Saturday at the 5 Seasons Hotel. High-end hotels are my favorite. They offer very generous tips. I eagerly accepted the assignment. My coordinator emailed me the details and my responsibilities. The only unusual task, aside from having children on my lap and handing out presents, was mingling with guests. That wasn't something I was particularly good at, but I was willing to give it a shot. 3 hours before the hotel appearance, there was another event scheduled at a senior center, and I agreed to that one as well. Only after confirming both events did I realize that the company sponsoring Santa's appearance at the hotel was none other than Cassie's employer, Malden Enterprises. Funny enough, she hadn't mentioned the party, and it was just 2 weeks away. Not that it mattered much, since I had already committed to being their Santa, but I couldn't shake a sense of unease. Our usual Saturday evening routine involved dinner at a restaurant, followed by a movie or a play. I waited as long as I could to bring it up. It was the Thursday evening before her company party. Cassie, let's have dinner and go to the movies tomorrow evening. On Saturday, I'll be busy with a project during the day and evening. Then you'll miss my company's holiday party. This is the first I've heard about it. I'm sure I've told you already, maybe more than once. I distinctly remember mentioning it last weekend. You never listened to me. Not that your absence would be a big loss for the party. You have to admit, you're not exactly a fan of parties. Lies, lies, and more lies. Do you think Cassie said that with a tone of disappointment? Not exactly. If anything, she could barely conceal her delight. She was at least trying to act sad. She tried, but I made a mental note to watch her closely. They don't usually introduce Santa to everyone present, and this event was no different from the others. I had already met most of the management team members at previous events. Though I'm quiet and reserved, I have an excellent memory for faces and names. Only a few people in attendance gave me a second glance. Something about me registered in the back of their minds. Eyes have a way of making an impression on the subconscious. Fortunately, no one uncovered my secret. The owner of the company, John Malden, was delighted to see all his employees and their families. Through the crowd of employees, some of whom were drunk out of their minds, others loudly bragging, and some handing out gifts worth thousands of dollars they were entitled to, I spotted John with Cassie. Although I couldn't hear their conversation, Cassie's body language made it clear she was acting as if she had done everything possible to get me to attend. John must have heard this kind of story dozens of times, as his body language was anything but warm. When John turned away from Cassie, I saw her flirting with one of the salesmen. Pat Stillman was probably about 10 years older than us, and he had a wife and several kids. At least that's how I remembered him from the summer barbecue. Maybe Mrs. Stillman was playing Santa tonight. I could only assume that Pat had either divorced or found a way to leave his wife for the evening. Cassie raising her eyebrows and smiling at him made me uneasy. Every 40 minutes, I got a 10-minute break. After stepping out of the restroom, I hid in the shadows. In this hotel, Santa Claus hides behind a dark mesh screen. You can sort of see through it to the dance floor. Cassie and Pat were slow dancing. Her head gently rested on his shoulder. My stomach tightened as I saw Cassie take Pat's hand and run it across her chest. I know that move well, having enjoyed it many times myself. Slowly pulling out my phone, I stuck my hand out from behind the screen and snapped a few pictures. I sent Cassie the best failed the spouse test photo. Take a look at this picture someone sent me. In the next shot, maybe show yourself beating the guy. Isn't that Pat Stillman? Cassie must not have heard the buzz of my message, or perhaps her phone was lying on the table. Out of curiosity, I called the hotel and asked to be connected to Cassie Foster's room. No such person was registered. How about Pat Stillman? They connected me. No one answered, but that pretty boy jerk had a room. That's when I decided to send a photo to John Malden. Do you encourage your married employees to cheat at these parties? And on a party I wasn't even invited to, no less. Strange that Pat has a room booked at this hotel, isn't it, Jeff Foster? Returning to Santa's table, I saw John glance at his phone. Then he began watching the same pair I'd been observing. Turning to the official photographer, he gestured with his fingers. John and the photographer exchanged a few words. The photographer nodded and went on, capturing photos of Cassie and Pat. When the second slow dance ended, Cassie and Pat gave each other a quick peck on the lips before walking off in opposite directions. It wasn't surprising that, despite going their separate ways, they ended up sitting next to each other. I noticed name cards on every table, so the seating arrangement was strictly planned. How convenient. It was time for me to take my seat on Santa's throne. I've always wondered why the mothers of these kids flirt with Santa. What's the appeal? Do they really think I have anything in common with the big guy? Don't get me wrong. I don't mind when a woman goes out of her way to make sure I notice her neckline. I always smile and wink back in response. While excited children shared their stories with me, I noticed Cassie looking at her phone. Her reaction was comical. She pulled away from Pat and scanned the room, clearly trying to figure out who might have taken that photo. Pat tried to put his arm around her, but she pushed him away, reprimanding him sharply. He joined her in scanning the room. During a break between children, I quickly snapped a picture of the two of them, one looking to the left, the other to the right. I decided I'd send it to Cassie during my next break. Luckily, my phone was on vibrate. Cassie disappeared into the hallway alone with her phone in hand. While my phone buzzed, I watched her pacing back and forth, occasionally pulling her phone away from her ear and staring at it, as if that would somehow convince me to answer. Of course, I ignored her call and let it go to messages. When the food lines opened, it marked the start of my 30-minute dinner break. I used this opportunity to send Cassie the failed test photo. "This looks more like we got caught. Don't bother coming home." Within seconds, Cassie glanced at her phone and looked visibly upset. With a flick of her fingers, she sent a reply. "It's not what you think. This is a complete misunderstanding." At least I had disrupted her plans for an evening of bliss. The problem was, I doubted I had been lucky enough to catch her affair before it fully began. If Pat was separated or divorced, I couldn't help but wonder, was Cassie the reason behind it? It was time to mingle with the guests. I felt more like a clown than Santa. Turns out, people don't know how to have an adult conversation with Santa. Pat nervously scanned the crowd, clearly looking for the snitch. Cassie kept her distance from everyone before heading toward the restrooms. Like a squirrel caught in a trap, Pat didn't know where to turn when Malden approached him. After a brief conversation, Pat's shoulders slumped, and he headed for the exit. Just then, Cassie reappeared at the party. Her face lit up with a smile as Malden caught her attention. But watching that smile vanish was priceless. The look of fear and panic on Cassie's face warmed my heart. Rushing away a tear, Cassie gathered her things and left the party. This strange circle was now complete. Playing Santa had made me fall in love with Cassie, and now I found her utterly repulsive. After sitting with the kids following dinner, I took another break. Cassie had left several voice and text messages that I replied to. "My informant told me you and Pat were sent home. Did you stop by his room again? Maybe you fooled around a little before the party and a little after it. Jeff, it's not what you think. I didn't do anything like that. I started feeling unwell, so I left. I went straight home, and I'm here now. Alone. When are you coming home? I believe I asked you not to come home. I think I'll get a room for the night. You disgust me. Jeff, don't say that. Come home. Let me explain everything so you'll understand." "There's nothing to understand. You wore an outfit I've never seen before and pressed his hand to your chest. I bet you two had dirty plans for the evening. No wonder you didn't want me to attend. Where were his wife and kids? They're divorcing. So you're a homemaker too. What a crap." Cassie called, but I couldn't answer. Santa's break was over. One last session, and then I packed my things. Usually, I spend my tips buying Cassie nice gifts. If she gets anything from me this year, it won't even be as thoughtful as a lump of coal. Back in my regular attire, I sought out John Malden. "Hi, John." "Jeff Foster," I said, extending my hand. "Jeff, I sent Cassie home." "No, we do not condone such behavior. She and Pat will have a meeting with HR on Monday." "Not that it's important, but how did you get that photo?" "You're right. It's not important. I'm glad you're addressing the issue. If we never meet again, just know that I appreciate your stance. I hope the holidays treat you well." John patted me on the back as I turned to leave. It can't be easy feeling like a father to a team of misbehaving adults. After turning off my phone, I found a cheap motel near the highway. Emotionally, I was more drained than physically. After a long hot shower, the reality of my situation finally hit me. I won't say I cried myself to sleep, but I won't deny it either. Even without an alarm, I woke up at the same time I always do. How does our body know whether I like it or not? I would eventually have to go home. If it were up to me, I'd make it later rather than sooner. When I turned my phone back on, as expected, there were several calls and messages from Cassie. Instead of calling her, I reached out to the Santa hotline to see if they needed any last-minute substitutes. It turned out the Santa scheduled for the children's hospital had been arrested for drunk driving on Saturday evening. I quickly agreed to fill in for him. It was my first time performing as Santa in a hospital. I might never say no again. The children, though sick, were more genuine. Their hugs were filled with hope. If a parent was present, whether a man or a woman, I usually received crushing embraces as well. Some of the nurses were overly friendly. For some reason, I needed that. The woman I loved had torn my heart to pieces, and I needed some kind of comfort when lunch break came. My guide was July, a nurse about my age. We walked side by side, at a brisk pace. "We can use the nurses' lounge as long as you behave," she said. "I don't have trouble telling the naughty from the nice," I replied. "Really? Which category do I fall into?" "Definitely nice." Julie's smile was disarming. "Good answer. What would you like to drink? Did you bring anything to eat?" "I'm filling in for a sick Santa, so I wasn't prepared. Water is all I need. The hospital covers your meal. Tell me what you want, and it'll be here in 10 minutes or less." After July placed the lunch order, she pulled a chair closer. I removed my white gloves and red hat. "I can tell by your hands that you're probably around 30 years old. You've got a ring halo. Do you still have a Mrs. Claus?" "Probably not for much longer." I hesitated. "Sorry, I didn't mean to upset you." "Don't apologize. It's my issue, not yours. You don't have any rings or halos. Hard to believe someone as sweet as you is single. Aren't you a charming talker?" I was focused on my studies and didn't want a relationship interfering with my career. I only graduated from nursing school 18 months ago. Things are settling down now, so I might just raise my dating radar a notch or two. "With a smile like yours, you won't be on the market for long," I said, which earned me another one of her stunning smiles. My food arrived, along with an apple for Julie. We kept chatting until my break ended. Julie stayed by my side the whole time, guiding me from room to room. When it was time to pack up, Julie waited while I changed out of my Santa suit and then walked me to my car. "I hope our paths cross again, Santa. Unless, of course, you'd like to tell me your real name." "Jeff. Jeff Foster. It was a pleasure spending time with you today, July. Your smile is exactly what I needed. You were wonderful today, Jeff. Children and animals always seem to recognize a good person, and those kids truly embraced you. Take care of yourself, sweetheart," she said, turning back toward the hospital. Sitting in the driver's seat, I stayed there for a long time. When I finally started the car, I realized what lay ahead for me. Being around those kids strengthened my resolve to ensure my life moves in the right direction. When I got home, there were 2 extra cars parked in front of the house. It struck me that I hadn't turned on my phone since heading to the hospital. As I waited for the garage door to open, I saw Cassie pull back the curtain in the living room. She was standing there with her mother, both watching me. The greeting I received was less than warm. "Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence," my mother-in-law said. I ignored her. "I was worried about you," Cassie said. "The little boy had to run away and hide," my brother-in-law quipped. Only my father-in-law came close to being polite. "Do you want to explain why you disappeared, Jeff? I take it Cassie gave you the Hallmark version of events. Did she forget to tell you she's dating again?" "I wasn't invited to her holiday party, but there's a photo of Cassie beaming while her boyfriend gropes her chest." My mother-in-law, Cassie's mother, chimed in, full of indignation. "Absolute nonsense. I don't believe it. It doesn't matter. I'm glad you're all here. This way. The story can't be spun. I'm divorcing Cassie." Cassie screamed, "Jeff." "No." I raised my hand to stop her. "Let me finish. I've always wanted kids, but I decided having them with Cassie was too risky. I grew up surrounded by cruelty and disrespect, and last night, Cassie showed me her true colors. I refused to end up as a weekend dad." Cassie tried to hug me. Using the kitchen table as a shield, I continued. "Just a month ago, on our 5th anniversary, We were discussing having kids, and now I find out she has a boyfriend. Did you tell them the owner of the company sent you home from the party for inappropriate behavior? Well, did you, Cassie? The room fell deathly silent. That's what I thought. I wonder if you'll still have a job on Monday. Her current boyfriend is Pat Stillman, who's apparently in the process of getting a divorce. Although maybe he just told Cassie he's divorcing, so she'd spread her cheating legs for him. He's not my boyfriend. We never had an intimate relationship. Then what was it? Did you ask him to fondle your chest? Cassie quickly left the room. Suddenly, everyone else found something or someone else to look at besides me. I won't be long. I just need to grab enough clothes for a few days. Then you can all get back to ganging up on Jeff. Son, maybe counseling could help, my father-in-law offered. Sir, in case you weren't listening, I want kids, but I'm not willing to risk their future with someone like Cassie. Counseling isn't going to change that. I heard plenty of hushed arguments as I walked to my bedroom. The bathroom door was closed. I assumed Cassie had locked herself in there. 10 minutes later, I was driving out of the garage. On Wednesday, Cassie was served divorce papers at Meldon Enterprises. I learned about it from a few angry ex-relatives. Apparently, it was somehow inappropriate. I'm not sure why. When Cassie called that evening, I decided to be polite. Hello. I answered in my flattest, most monotone voice. Jeff, it's me. I know. What do you want? You never gave me a chance to explain what you think you saw in that photo. Go ahead. It was taken out of context. We must have been spinning or something like that, and the photo leads to a very inaccurate conclusion. Really? Then I'm at fault. Just so you know, I didn't share the video that was also sent. Let me play it again to check how well your story holds up. The only video was the one that kept playing in my head. That evening, I wasn't thinking. Video is as easy to capture as a photo. Jeff, please, it was just silly fun on the dance floor, that's all. And lying about it makes it better. That's like shooting a horse with a bad leg and expecting it to heal faster. You killed our future. I'm not going to try raising kids only for you to run off with a lover, demanding alimony and child support. We're done. Just give me a chance. You won't regret it. You couldn't stay faithful for 5 years. Now I'm supposed to believe you'll make it 20 because you've suddenly had a revelation. Sorry. I have to go. Call me petty. Call me a coward. But most of all, call me gone. I'll fight the divorce, Jeff. Good for you. I hope you pull your head out of your ass before you marry again, were my parting words. If Cassie had followed through on her threat to fight the divorce, it would have cost everyone nothing but money. Although it didn't fix anything, the news that Cassie had been demoted brought a smile to my face. My anticipated alimony payments rose slightly. Curiosity got the better of me, so I called Meldon Enterprises and asked to speak with Pat Stillman. As much as I wanted to hear that he was gone, I was told he wouldn't be in the office for several days. Oh well. With just a couple of weeks left until Christmas, all Santa visits to hospitals were already scheduled. I put my name down for every single one of them, ready to fill in if needed. Someone at the North Pole must have been looking out for me. On the Sunday afternoon before Christmas, I was playing Santa at another hospital. My contact and guide was a man with a strong personality. Still, I thoroughly enjoyed interacting with the children and their families. By the end of the day, I was more determined than ever to have a family of my own. Even though the divorce process had barely begun, I opened a few accounts on dating sites. Many people use these platforms not just for dating. The emails I received ranged from political to religious, mixed with offers for all kinds of products. Sifting through them, I found a few people interested in chatting. That's when I chickened out. My conservative self-awareness panicked and reared its head. Dating sites quickly moved into the someday category. Cassie didn't fight the divorce, but it still dragged on until spring. I formed a few friendly connections with women, but wasn't ready to date. The few times I tried ended in disaster. Recovering from a broken marriage takes time. Strangely enough, I found comfort in knowing there were others like me, searching for love. Responding to emails and exchanging innocent lies helped pass the evenings. People at my job didn't know about my divorce until I showed up to the summer company party without my spouse. That's when the rumors started. Why is it that husbands are always assumed to be the cheaters? According to a study I read on the demographics of infidelity, the rates are nearly equal up to age 50. After that, men are more likely to stray or claim they need an ego boost. Either way, it eventually led to me going on a few dates. It was late August when a repairman's ladder fell on me. All I was doing was standing in line at the cafeteria. Why he needed to climb that ladder during the busiest time of the day didn't matter to me. What did matter was the ugly, bloody wound near my ankle. One of my coworkers drove me to the emergency room at good as a.m. As I sat in my curtain room, I thought I heard a familiar voice. When the sound of the curtain being drawn reached my ears, my heart started to race. Well, what do we have here? It's you. Santa has a leg injury. Reindeer acting up, Jeff. Kids found out about your past. Is that why you're here, Julie? Yes, you caught me. They advised me to leave and take a higher-paying job with better benefits. Do you have a story to go with that cut? Looks like you'll need a few stitches. A repairman knocked over his ladder and it landed right on me. I see your rings are gone. Divorced. Since April. And you're still not wearing any rings on your fingers. Do you take them off for work? Maybe I should take you to dinner and you can tell me all about it. Maybe you should. When was the last time you had a DP shot, tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis vaccine? Let's see, how about no idea? I'll let the doctor know. So, where are you taking me? To infinity and beyond. About that time, the doctor entered the room. What happened, Mr. Foster? A ladder hit me. It's bleeding a bit. Nurse Julie here was distracting me so I wouldn't feel the pain. Good work, nurse. No problem. He doesn't remember his last DP shot. Maybe we should make this one extra painful so he remembers for next time. I take it you two know each other. We met last Christmas. He was playing Santa. Well, that explains why Nurse Julie isn't her usual quiet and shy self this time. The hospital probably won't approve of making the DP shot painful, so let's stick to the rules. Clean the wound and give him the shot. I'll be back in a few minutes with the suture kit. After the doctor left, Julie carefully gave me the shot. As she cleaned the wound, she asked me again. So, where and when are you taking me? Somewhere I can show you off without worrying you'll run off with my competitor. Maybe the laundromat. How about no? She replied as I felt a sharp sting in my wound. Then how about this? Meet me tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Jenny's Pub. They have great marinades. You're making me drive myself. Well, I don't have your phone number or address. Touché, it's a date, she said with a smile that completely disarmed me. The doctor returned, and within 10 minutes I had a few stitches. As I was leaving, Julie said with a mischievous smirk, "Don't be late, or your nightmare about competitors might come true." I arrived at Jenny's Pub at 6 p.m. To be honest, I was more nervous than I'd been for a date since my breakup. My heart jumped into my throat when I saw some guy holding the door open for Julie. Although he invited her to join him, she brushed him off and scanned the room. She had dressed to impress. And me. Not so much. I stood and waved at her. Her smile warmed my anxious heart. "Popular spot," she greeted me. "Well, I did say I wanted to show you off. Looks like the wolf didn't waste any time trying to charm the fox. But I bet you're used to that. What can I get you to drink?" "White wine. Judging by the peanut shells, it seems you've been here a while." "Yeah, I couldn't afford to be late. At least, that's what I was told." Wow, a guy who listens. The noise wasn't too loud, and we had a lovely conversation over dinner and drinks. When we got tired of sitting at the table, I suggested, "Want to catch a movie or go dancing?" "Not really. I'm more interested in learning more about you and your past." There's a small, quiet coffee shop near my apartment. I'll send you the address. What's your phone number?" After exchanging kind kisses as we left the restaurant, I looked up the coffee shop on the map. Fortunately, it was easy to find. Julie arrived a few minutes before I did. She must know where all the best parking spots are. It turned out to be another enjoyable 2 hours. She's 3 years younger than me. She wants kids. She's focused on building her career but understands that she'll likely need to pause it for a few years when she has children. She's as quiet and reserved as I am. But if you get her to open up, she has a wonderfully funny sense of humor. Fortunately, July didn't pry for details about my failed marriage right away. That conversation happened a month later. After 2 more Saturday dates, and then 2 weeks of dating on both Wednesdays and Saturdays, she wanted details. "Jeff, I can tell you like me. I think you know I like you too. Before we move into a more serious relationship, I need to know what happened to end your first marriage. Julie, I really like you. Please understand, this is my version of what happened. Feel free to verify it with anyone I mention. Here goes. You're probably the only person who knows that I play Santa. Even my ex didn't know and still doesn't. Last December, I signed up to perform at the 5 Seasons Hotel. It turned out the party was for my ex's company, Malden Enterprises. I wasn't invited to this party. I waited for an invitation, but it never came. On the Thursday before the party, I told her I had some plans for that Saturday. Only then did she tell me I'd be missing her company's holiday party. I told her to go without me. That sounds suspicious enough to raise some red flags. Exactly. So, as Santa, I kept an eye on her. She was very friendly with a salesman who happened to have a room booked at the hotel. During my first break, the dance floor was busy, so I took the opportunity to observe people. My ex and the man were slow dancing when I saw it. My ex took his hand and pressed it to the side of her chest, mostly hidden from view, hidden from everyone except me, since Santa was resting off to the side, in the shadows, out of sight. I snapped a photo. Too bad I didn't record a video. Things hit the fan fast when I shared the photo with her and the owner of the company. "What a sneaky person," Julie said. "The next day, I met you while performing at the children's hospital. Being around those kids reignited my desire to have children. Deep down, I knew I couldn't trust my future children's well-being to someone like her, so I filed for divorce." "Just like that?" Julie asked, bewildered. "Yes. A quick decision. No counseling. Just, goodbye. I'm out of here." "Yep. Having kids is a 20-year commitment. She couldn't even last 5. But you didn't have proof that she was unfaithful." "I didn't have proof that they had an intimate relationship. What I saw was her being unfaithful. She had pressed my hand to her chest more than once during a slow dance. It turned her on. The connection afterward was always intense. I learned what I needed to know. She lost the chance to have children with me. Trust is a lifelong conviction that we must be prepared to defend with conviction. I did what I believed was right." Julie's face showed a mix of emotions. After that, the conversation dragged on. When we hugged and kissed that evening, I wasn't sure if there would be another date, but I called a few days later, still hopeful, and July acted completely normal. By the time we made our commitment to exclusivity, quite some time had passed. After dinner and a walk in the park, July brought me to her apartment. Throughout the time we were together, I had hardly seen her skin. She always wore jeans or skirts with knee-high boots. Her hoodies or button-up blouses showed no hint of cleavage. My mouth watered when she performed an essential striptease for me. My striptease for Julie was not essential. Since that night, closeness had become an integral part of every date. The holiday season was approaching again. "Do you have any plans for Saturday?" I asked Julie. "Well, I'm working a shift from 4 p.m. to midnight." "Why?" "Want to be Santa's cute little helper." "Sure, of course. I signed up to be Santa at your old workplace. I'm supposed to be there at 8 a.m., The kids might not appreciate how amazing you look in your helper costume, but I definitely will." She laughed. "Pervert. Let's hope those kids can't read minds, or they'll be seriously confused." And so Julie joined me at the children's hospital. We worked wonderfully together. I absolutely love lifting the spirits of those kids. As we were leaving, dressed in regular clothes, Julie leaned toward me. "You know, if I'm asked, I'm ready to sign a 25-year contract. Or longer. Aren't you afraid I'll make a rash decision and throw you away?" "No. I talked to John Malden, and he pretty much confirmed your story. I'm impressed by the courage you showed in standing up for your beliefs. And you believe in fidelity to the very end. Just as much as you do. I didn't miss my opportunity." Turning to Julie, I took both her hands in mine and dropped to one knee. "Julie, will you marry me?" I said, opening an imaginary ring box. "It would be an honor, sir," she said, taking the imaginary ring from the imaginary box and slipping it onto her finger. "Looks like I guessed the ring size correctly." "Yes. 5.5 fits perfectly," she said with a sly smile. "Got it. 5.5. A few days later, I repeated my proposal with a real ring. It felt like we were living in a festive fairy tale. Everything that was supposed to happen, happened. We lived happily ever after and had 2 children. First came a beautiful girl, whom we named Julie Jr. Then came another girl, whom we named Jeff Jr. Just kidding. We gave them traditional names. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.